Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rob Races and Roy Builds. Today we're mostly dismantling. So in the last video we made a parts list and I have since ordered a buttload of parts for this car. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that stuff to show up, we have a lot of disassembly to do. We got to get the car broken down to a point where we can start repairing stuff. So why don't we start with the elephant in the engine bay, which is that 3-cylinder K20 Z3. Let's pull that thing out of there. Couple things to note there. In the last video you guys heard me say I think this thing's had a clutch done. As I'm starting to pull it apart, I'm finding a little bit of evidence. The airbox was not mounted properly. It was missing a bolt. And you can see here our wiring is not properly clipped into the bracket down here, and our one bracket is also bent right there. You can see that's folded over, so definitely evidence that someone has been here before. If you guys aren't aware, you can obviously take the motors out of these cars through the top or through the bottom. Jackie and I, we're taking this one out through the top. So I'm gonna keep tearing her down. We've got two different types of hardware holding on the ECU. That one is correct. That one is stripped and not correct. The lower bolt for the battery bracket was loose on the one side, tight on the other side. And I just noticed that this wire is routed completely on the wrong side. You'll notice there's cut off clips down here. It's supposed to run down this side and then plug in, so someone was lazy when they put it back together. I am Cornelio. I don't think that's OEM hardware. Wow, that one's stripped out. Now that's a mother flippin' zip tie. That's our passenger side inner fender. It's repairable. It's actually blue coolant. Color me impressed. I'm sure we all get those moments where you're working on a new project car and you just go, what the... I've got a few of those to show you. So, not only are both of those transmission slash motor mount bolts loose, the back one I can't actually turn by hand, but you can see it's half an inch threaded up. This one has a little air gap in it. But, look closely, the third bolt that's supposed to be into the frame rail there on the bottom, yeah, that's not installed. She gone. So that's comforting. But, just when you thought that was the weirdest thing, this next one is special. I don't think I've ever witnessed something quite this special. Yep. That is a zip tie holding on a ground strap to an aluminum mount. That's approved. That's approved. What other garbage have we got going on here? Well, our lower rad support, she's got a twank in her, as you may be able to see. She goes whoop-de-whoop. She's supposed to go like that. Yeah, no. So, gonna have to... Oh, it's actually worse than I thought. Look at that, that whole thing is buckled. She's a bit of a project. I'm learning. On that note of damage, that front bumper is a lot worse than I thought too. That might be interesting to make work. But hey, that's what we're here for. To take junk and make it less junk. As you can see though, we're making good progress. All the front end stuff's off. Alternator, AC condenser. Intake, wiring, all that's unplugged. We're basically good to go in the front. Obviously still got to undo the mounts. I've got to do the exhaust, axles, heater lines, fuel line, shift cables. There's lots to do. Look at this belt though. Think it was due for a replacement? I don't know. I think it's basically new. Is it a Honda belt? I don't know. Nope, it's a Daco. Starting to wonder if this engine's original to this car. I'm gonna crawl under this thing and have a look at the VIN tags. Let's find out. Oh, all right, Alan. Show me where it hurts. Oh gosh, I'm just gonna rock it. Original transmission. You're gonna be surprised by this, but there's dirt on the VIN tag. She is indeed original. There you have it. Not for long. Not for long. Seriously, everything on this car is bastardized. This ABS cable too, not attached, it was zip tied. All clips broken. And look at this hose. It is not supposed to, it's like sprung wound. Someone like twisted it up and then installed it. Wasn't bolted onto nothing, like, ay, ay. Yeah. She's a project, boys. She's a real project, this one. Also, here's that broken spring. I don't think it's supposed to do that. Found the problem. Well, my friends, the motor is out. And what a dirty, nasty home it lived in. I tell you, the more I look at this car, the worse it gets. These were the two bolts that were holding in the transmission mount. Let's go right here. They're the complete wrong bolt. One was cross-threaded and only quarter inch in. The other one was most of the way in. So, strong chance the threads in that hole are completely... yeah. Anyone else who bought this car would have parted it out. And you know why? Because they're not as dumb as I am. Right now I'm trying to assess if this bumper's worth saving. So it's split behind here where it goes onto the headlight. There's no tab right here to hold it, so you can see it will sit out a bit. And there's one tab here only. It also got here this major hole. So the problem with that hole is, if we come look at my other bumper, the problem with that hole is it's torn off this tab and this tab, and that is what holds the inner fender. So don't love that. This side's not too bad. I mean, we got the holes and stuff, but we actually have a few tabs, so this one actually does clip in. And it's good around the headlight. Plus our broken, that's broken, that's totally broken, yeah. So. You guys get the idea. We'll keep on scrubbing until we get to some semblance of clean. Well, there you have it, guys. It's clean, but it doesn't look any better. See, we've got a liberal amount of surface rust on that side of the subframe. None of that is actually harmful. It's all just on the surface, so that's good. Same with this side, wherever the dirt was built up, there's a bit of surface. But we got all the grime off of there anyway. I'll grime out of these areas because they were full of mud, being the winter fender. So yeah, definitely is looking better, but we'll probably want to put some paint on that subframe and or some lanolin wax, something to protect it and make it look a little better. Not that you can really see it once the engine's in the car anyway. Not that you can really see anything I cleaned once everything's back together, but hey, it's nice to get dirt and grime and grease out of an engine bay if you're going to be working on it, right? Right. So yeah, that's that. What's next? I don't know. Let's do something. We got no engines, do we? Oh, I guess we do. Alright fellas, I got the motor up on the stand here. As you can see, this is our replacement motor. The old motor's sitting over there still. But we got a few things to do. I got some parts in here for it. This maintenance stuff, we got a valve cover gasket and spark plug donuts. We got the exhaust donut. I got a throttle body gasket because I intend to use the throttle body that came off the car because it knows the computer. They've developed a relationship over the years. They don't need to be separated. We got spark plugs and a new drive belt. A few miscellaneous things, but mainly we want to get this thing cleaned right up. It's actually a pretty clean motor. It's not bad at all, but when in Rome, clean your K20. We also want to do a valve adjustment because it's way easier to do it on the stand right here in our face than it is to do it bending over, snapping our spine, doing it under the cowl of an 8th gen. So we'll do the valve adjustment, replace the valve cover gasket. I think while we're here too, a guy might even have some VHT wrinkle paint. Maybe we'll spruce up this valve cover a titch. And a few other things. We've got the knock sensor's broken off. Got to fix the knock sensor. And yeah, you know, just a general going over. Curious to get the valve cover off and look inside it anyways. The exhaust manifold, it has one stud is good and one stud is snapped off inside it, which is the exact same story as the manifold that came off our car. So I have to fix one of them. I might as well fix the one that's already on this motor, although I might take it off to fix it. I'm not sure. We'll play that by ear. But yeah, I'm excited to make some progress. So let's strip this thing down to the bare bones-ish, just so we can clean it. And then once it's cleaned, we'll start with the maintenance stuff. Okay, you can see we just pulled off the wiring harness and the intake manifold cover. So now we're ready to wash this thing. All the important holes are all plugged up. One thing I just want to mention before you wash something like this, take note if the engine's not familiar to you, like this one, I just purchased it. Take note of oil leaks, because if you clean it, you may not be able to see them until it's too late. So on this engine, I've looked back here because this is kind of the oiliest area of the motor. Jackie wants to check it out. Come on, Jackie. Come see it. Yeah. Now, none of this is actually indicative of a leak to me. It's all very mild grease stuck to here. It's not like there's anything pulled up anywhere. And I believe it's just due to the oil filter, right? That's a really crappy place on these cars to get to. And when you take these off, it all pours down here, pours down here. You drive the car over time, you just get a buildup. So I think we're fine there for oil leaks. Our rear main seal is dry, which is nice. Come around the front, you'll see the front of the valve cover is pretty oily. And that might lead you to think valve cover leak, but actually you'll notice most of the grease is right around this area, and that's where people fill the oil when they change it. So any little bit they spill goes in behind the VTEC cover there. You can't clean it and it builds up over time. So I don't even think the valve cover is leaking, although we will be changing the valve cover gasket. All right, Jeggy? Yeah. Up front, same thing. It's got, you know, the usual grease and grub of a older motor, but it's pretty dang clean when you consider 240,000 kilometers. Looks like it was well looked after. What are you doing, Jackie? So yeah, all we gotta do now is roll it outside, we'll degrease it and wash it, and then we'll start working on it. Interesting. On the cam caps, we have someone has written in Sharpie 57 on the first cam cap, the fourth, and the fifth. Wonder why that is. But we have a very clean engine. Well, come over here, I'll show you. As you can see, she's very clean in here. That's a nice thing to see. But yeah, it's strange. We have written in Sharpie there 57, 57, 57. I don't think I've seen that before. So maybe someone's been in here before, I don't know. The spark plugs look to be in actually quite decent condition. They're all very similar. None of them look suited up. I would say it was a good running engine, so that's another positive note. I may gap, well, not gap them because they're an iridium, but I may check the gap on them just to see how close they are to spec. I did buy new ones, so we will install them, but just to get a health check on the engine, it's kind of nice to see. So yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here so we're not making a mess, and then we'll get into our valve lash adjustment. Got it all written down so I can record before and after specs of each cylinder, exhaust, and intake, and then I've got the spec written for what they should be. Got my feeler gauges out, so I'm basically ready to go once I give it a quick clean here. Okay, we're testing out our first intake valve here on the heavy end of the spec. Definitely a little bit more resistance there than there probably should be, but again, this is the heavy end of the spec. Floats loosely in that one, so that one could actually probably be tightened up a little bit. I think we're gonna go, we can go 0.008 to 0.010, so why don't we just make it smack dab in the middle at 0.009 and call it good. So yeah, we're definitely a little loose on that one.
Happy with that. Release it.
Okay, I think we have a nice consistent feel there. I'm going with middle of the spec, both sides. A little bit of resistance, but you can get it through there. So I'm going to continue on with that throughout the intake side, and I'll catch up with you guys on the exhaust side. All right, and with that, the intake valves are done. They're all set to 0.009, which is right in the middle of the spec. As you can see, a few of them, that cylinder was within spec. This cylinder was a little loose. This cylinder, one valve was in spec, the other was a little loose, and then same with that one. So let's move on to the exhaust side, which is arguably the more important side. Okay, with the exhaust valves done, I have a few observations I want to mention. I was saying that it had the weird 57 writing on it. That must have been something from the factory. I get the impression that valve cover had never been off. It was pretty tough to pop off. And in the areas where you would generally see Honda Bond in a factory type way, it was all there. Makes me think either a Honda technician did it or it was done that way from the factory. The other thing that makes me think the valve covers never went off is I don't think the valves have been adjusted. So our intake side was pretty good. Most of them were within spec. A couple were a little looser, which is pretty typical. But the exhaust side, basically nothing was in spec. Yeah, nothing was. But we had a few bad ones, like I wrote the numbers down right, but I think I accidentally put those two in the wrong spot. Anywho, this cylinder right here, cylinder 2, this exhaust valve was extremely tight. It was 0.007, whereas the maximum tight spec should be 0.010. So that was definitely tight. Most of them were 0.009 or 0.010, which is definitely on the tight side. Yeah, the 0.010 was within spec, but still it's tighter than I'd like to run. I like to run my exhaust valves on the loosest spec recommended. It's just safer that way. As exhaust valves tighten up is generally when you get to see heat in them. They may be stuck open slightly, and then that's when you get burned exhaust valves. And then you're tearing into your motor to repair stuff you don't want to repair. Like that motor over there. I guarantee you, because it did have a burned exhaust valve, or here, it probably never ever had a valve adjustment, and those valves just got tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and then eventually finally burned a hole through one, and then it lost compression in that cylinder. So I'm glad we did this one, because this engine was still good compression, but I'm glad we checked these valves while we were in the neighborhood, and now they're all in spec, and I feel good about it. So we need to clean off the Honda Bond so that we can replace the valve cover. But the question is, do we paint that valve cover? I don't mind the silver. Silver doesn't look bad. All right, let me flip it over. Let's have a better look at what kind of conditions, and then I'll make a choice from there. I think I decided to not paint the valve cover. It's actually in decent condition. A lot of the ones up here in Canada, get immense corrosion on these sides and all the paint peels up. And this one's actually pretty clean. It's got a little peel up in there and, you know, there's a few little imperfections. It ain't perfect. But it cleaned up really nice, so I spent a few minutes. I gave it a clean. I gave the Honda logo a file just so it's a little shinier, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think that's gonna look sharp in the engine bay, and we don't need it to look like some racer was painting the valve cover to go faster. I just want a nice stock looking engine bay, so I think this is the move. So let's throw this valve cover gasket in there, and then we can slap it on the engine. I already did clean up the corners of Honda Bond all around the head. I'll probably give it one more wipe with some alcohol so I can re-Honda Bond those exact same areas. And then we're laughing. Ha. I'm gonna let that silicone set up just for a minute, and then I'm gonna torque it down to spec. Click. 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 Alright, dudes and dudettes, it's the following day. As you can see, the engine didn't finish assembling itself. We've still got to put the engine harness back on. We've got the fuel rail, a few random hoses and odds and sods that need to go back on to dress it. We've still got to fix the NOx sensor. We've got to change the throttle body. And we've got to add the mount from the original engine onto our side mount here. And we've got to fix the exhaust. So, what am I doing here standing here talking to you? I need to get to work. So, let's get to work. $678,000 years later, I got it loose. Victory! I'm gonna chase both these threads with the new bolt and spring kit, make sure they're both happy, and then we can move on to the next job. I'm gonna give each of these bolts a dab with some anti-seize, so when the next guy's in here, if the next guy's in here, he won't need as much mental therapy as I do. I also replaced that one bolt you see me kind of strip the head of earlier. I replaced that with one off the other engine. And on that note, while we're over here looking, FedEx guy just came and dropped me off some new meat. These are Ovation winter rated, I believe. I hope. They sure look like they're winter rated. Yep, there's the mountain peak. Anyway, they were the absolute cheapest I could buy. I typed in my size. I said sort by cheapest. This came up. I hit add to cart. Here we are. They look decent. They're pretty open tread, I gotta say. Decent sipage, decent depth. So yeah, for the price, hopefully they're decent. They will be going on the silver FG2 eventually. Okay, this is the block heater you guys seen me pull out of the old engine. I just want to plug it in and see if it works. It appears like the ground prong on the wiring is no good. It's pretty haggard. I'll be surprised if the wiring side of this works, but I'm just hoping the block heater does, so I can at least tell future owner that it has a working block heater. So oh yeah, she works. Oh, that smells disgusting. the block heater functions. I may replace this wiring because, like I said, the connector's in really bad shape. So, but the nice thing is the block heater's good, so I can install that in the block, and then that's the most difficult part when the motor's in the car. If I need to replace the cord, it's super easy. You just plug it in, route it up to the new spot. So that's a win. Okay, I just tossed on the heat shield. Unfortunately, I forgot to turn the camera on. When I was doing it, I put the upper and lower bolts in by hand, and then I went to put them both into the impact, and the lower bolt unfortunately snapped on me. So I've only got one bolt holding it. It is just a heat shield though. The upper one's nice and tight. It's not got no movement in it, so I'm not too worried, but it is unfortunate that I did break that one bolt. As you can see, this pulley is loud. I don't think I've owned a K20 that hasn't had a loud idler pulley. That being said, this one does spin nice and freely. The other one was pretty bound up. So this gets me going for now. If I find it is a little too loud, I may still replace it. It's very easy to replace in the car. Okay, with a bunch of time spending cleaning that throttle body, it's now installed, clean, looking good. We have one more thing to fix on this engine, which is the broken off knock sensor, which I've already loosened off here. You can see it snap clean off. Pretty common, these things are brittle. I happen to have a spare one right here that's in good shape, so we'll carefully reinstall that. Alrighty fellas, you guys just seen me change the oil drain plug on the car. The reason for that was the factory one was quite maimed. Someone had slipped a socket on it and it was pretty stripped, so. I went through the stash and I found the transmission style, which just takes the 3/8 ratchet. They are the same thread and same depth, so it works just fine. I put a brand new OEM crush washer on it, and then we also threw on a brand new OEM Honda filter, as you can see here. Reason for that is it's just way easier to do out of the car than in the car, so might as well get it done now. Although I have not put oil in the engine yet. Another thing I did quickly off camera, I actually pulled the knock sensor that I installed back out, and I threw a starter in. So a lot of the times these knock sensors get broken off when guys are in here trying to change the starters. So I thought, might as well pop it out while it's easy, throw the starter in now so that that's finished. And then I threw the knock sensor back in, so hopefully it's nice and safe. So all that needs to be done to the motor now is basically I need to throw the fuel rail on and the wiring harness. I'm going to wait on the wiring harness due to the fact that it's just easier to install the transmission on the motor without the harness on this side. Just makes it simpler to reach all your bell housing bolts with all of that stuff dangling in your way. I think I'm going to finish off this little bit of final assembly off camera. I'm sure this video is getting pretty long, and on that note, I'm curious what you guys like. Do you like the longer style videos? I know a lot of vlogger type guys do really short videos, but they have like no noteworthy content in them, and I don't really like doing that. I'm trying to get better at editing and filming certain things to try and make these bigger videos more easier to get through, basically trying to keep them fresh and entertaining while still seeing everything that goes into it. I know that the 10-minute builds where people buy like a crappy car and throw a bunch of stuff at it in a really quickly edited video, and then suddenly, boom, you have this brilliant result. I know those types of videos are really easy to take in, to view, to see, but realistically, they just don't show the actual amount of work that has to be put in. And I'm guilty of watching those types of videos too. I mean, they're so easy to sit down and watch 10 minutes and see this car transform. But realistically, that's just not how it happens. And I want to inspire guys to, you know, buy bad versions of these cars and fix them up. But I don't want there to be any like, I don't want there to be any delusions about how much work you have to put in. I want to show every detail, everything that's bad on the car, everything that has to be repaired. Like, an absolute ton of time goes into saving a car like this that's in this rough a condition. So I want to accurately represent the amount of work that needs to be done, but I don't want to make the videos an hour and a half, 2 hours long. I like half an hour, I feel like, is a good length video. This one's probably a bit longer than that, but anyways, let me know what you guys think. So in the next episode, we will probably be prepping the chassis to receive its new engine and potentially putting it in there. So if you guys aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing if you want to see more content on this build, and I'll hopefully catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.